Today's topic is conflict of interest. It has become a major theme in Washington. We have to eliminate conflict of interest. We have to make sure that everyone doesn't get torn between one goal and another goal. Conflict of interest or the human condition, and I'll explain why trying to eliminate conflict of interest is a very, very foolish idea. The term conflict of interest suggests that we might have two things we want to do. They're in conflict, we can't do both, and we have to make selections. We have to make trade-offs. Duh, that's the human condition. I'm on a diet, and yet I find myself tempted by pralines, which I've made this weekend. As we all are, we have many, many choices in life. Do we work longer hours, or do we neglect our family to some extent? Or do we spend more time at home in our social life and neglect our work effort a little bit? Those are the natural tensions that exist in any world where scarcity exists. Each of us in our own lives tries to reconcile those conflicts, and that's what maturity means. Understanding how to live a balanced life, one where you treat the values you care in a way that advances all of them while not sacrificing the others unduly. Businessmen do this continuously. The marketing department in a business wants to make lots of variety of products. The production department wants to make one product 24/7 all year round to reduce its cost. They're in conflict with one another. The challenge of management is to make sure that those conflicts are reconciled so as to advance a sustainable profitability of the firm. Because the firm has one overall objective, as you and I do, living a good life, sustainable profitability. The political world is a little different. Single mission agencies that have a very clear goal, can approximate the reconciliation strategies that business does, but only imperfectly, because any organization that is political is torn in hundreds of ways by the interest groups that dominate Washington. As you go from the mission agencies to, say, a state government, the only reconciliation force, the only thing that it requires the state governments to think carefully about whether they're pushing one goal at the expense of another, is the balanced budget amendment, the requirement that states stay within their limits. And even that can be played games with by putting things off budget with regulations or by making promises that won't come due till their successor is in power. The federal government, of course, faces very few of those restraints because, unlike state governments, the federal government can print money. It can reconcile its conflicts by just trying to do everything, as we've seen in the growing federal Leviathan state. It really isn't sustainable. It really is a violation of the whole concept of trade-offs, but the federal government has been doing it increasingly. That's coming to an end now. Conflict of interest says we can't do everything. We have to do some things first. We have to set priorities. It's now time for the federal government to do what you and I do when we decide whether we want a praline or really the lost weight we also hope for. Conflict of interest is something individuals deal with, politics doesn't do very well with. It's something they've got to learn, and they are learning it as we reach the end of the welfare regulatory Leviathan state that has been so dominating America for the last century.